We are so appreciative of Dakota Community Bank and Trust, Dale Paulke, Katie Handy, and all they do for our TV show. They present Dakota Cowboy each and every week here on Beck TV. We are just outside the Alvin Nelson Memorial Arena on a memorial bench for Naomi Russell, and there's a reason that we're here today, because this is Naomi's daughter, Emily.
Hi.
So good to see you.
Thank
Emily
you for having
Vernlund.
me.
Oh,
Thank you.
wonderful
Yes.
to have you. Emily has written a book, Finding Perspective Through 9/11, a single mom's journey through depression, death, lupus, and finding the will to survive. And we're going to tell you how to get this book. It is so amazing. It's a story of courage. It's the story of heartbreak. It's the story of grieving. It's your story. First of all, your story begins in the Kildare Mountains on a ranch. Tom Murphy, your dad, and Naomi Russell, your mother. You grew up on what was growing up with Seth and Lizzie and your family? What was that like?
Very, very chaotic. We come from a big family. As you know, my dad has 8 sisters, and they all have many children. And so growing up, we always just, we're so used to having family around. You know, we always had that. And almost everyone in my family was involved in rodeo. As you know, my dad was a very good rodeoer. Seth and Lizzie were also. I never had the, whoops, didn't mean to touch my mic, but I never had the rodeo gene.
Didn't have that gene, huh? No. Never even had a desire to see how fast you could tie a goat or go around a barrel pattern?
Truth be told, I never understood the idea of why I would want to jump off a horse running at full speed. That's never been something I've wanted to do. And when my sister, who was a national champion goat tyer from North Dakota, which was very exciting back when that happened, but she was trying to train me one time back in the day, and when I tried to dismount, my foot got caught in the stirrup, and I was like drug all around the arena. So
that did it for you. Okay. Probably saved your dad tens of thousands of dollars too, right?
It did, yes, it did. I think mom and dad were both secretly happy when I was like, I don't want to rodeo. I don't want to do this. But I loved going. I was always there. And I would always go to sing the national anthem, you know? But no, I just never had the rodeo competitive bug like that. But I love the lifestyle, the environment, the people that I got to meet by just tagging along with them.
Yeah.
So it was magical to grow up like that.
You know, your singing career is how you first came on my radar when I was on the radio, and you were going to perform at Carnegie Hall in New York City.
Yes.
And that's where I learned of Emily Murphy back then as a singer, and now you're a singer-songwriter, something that you'll find on our social media page. We've got so many things to cover today that we're going to get right into this book here. But first of all, at the North Dakota Cowboy Hall of Fame, a lot of your family, friends, and your Uncle Dean is in the Hall of Honorees.
And my Uncle Phil, my mom's brother.
Yep.
He was an honoree, or however.
Were you at his induction ceremony?
Yes.
He was very emotional. I can see how that runs in your family,
yes.
the
Big
emotions.
Yep.
So, and your mother, Naomi, she was at a lot of the events that we'd have here at the North Dakota Cowboy Hall of Fame. She was very instrumental in getting the rodeo brought back to the Rancho-Rama Arena here in Medora. And talk about your relationship with your mom.
You know, we were so blessed to have a mom like her. She could make the most boring thing the most exciting thing in the world. She had a place out here in Medora, and she named it Mayberry.
Oh, really?
Yep, she named it Mayberry. And when she would take the grandkids, she would pack up and do these picnics and take them out on the Ranger and have little hats for them to wear. And she would dress up in little outfits just for a day of picnics, you know? And she had such a magic to her where she could make anything amazing. And the best way to describe my mom is she had this sign in her home where all it says is celebrate everything.
Which it says on the memorial bench.
Yep, and that's my mama.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
Oh, gosh.
She knew how to celebrate life. Yes.
Okay. She passed away 2 years ago, but prior to that, all of a sudden, you were stricken with a disease. You explained it to me that lupus is kind of like your body being allergic to itself.
Yes. It started with my first year of teaching. I just got really, really sick, and everyone thought it was just because I was a teacher in a school around kids. You know, it's common to get sick when you're around kids. But anytime I would get a sore throat or anything, every time like clockwork, it turned into pneumonia. and I'd be hospitalized. And there was a period of about 8 months where I was hospitalized 6 times.
Oh my.
And I was losing clumps of my hair. My joints would swell up really bad. I get this beautiful butterfly rash all across my face. And it was incredibly painful. And what's hard about autoimmune diseases is most of the time they're invisible. You can't see it. You can't see what's going on. So while I was doctoring for years, a lot of people didn't believe me, and that's very common in the autoimmune community. Even doctors suggested I go to a psychiatrist. When I had 104 fevers, I had rashes everywhere. I couldn't walk. At one point I had to walk with a cane because I was in so much pain.
My goodness, my goodness. And while all this is going on, your mother was diagnosed with breast cancer.
And she died less than a month later.
Less than a month later she died, and you're still dealing with lupus, and that had to been extremely painful. The grief had to just been, you know, along with the debilitating disease as you've had, and losing your mom like that so suddenly. Talk about that. It's got to be just awful.
You know, it was amazing that because I have such an incredibly supportive family, during that time everybody was out at the ranch surrounded. We were all surrounded with so many people who loved us and were there for my siblings and I, and so that part we made it through, you know. But it wasn't until the dust settled, when you start going back home and you realize that my mom is gone, you know, that's when for me my mental health plummeted. And I've always battled with depression and anxiety my whole life, and some people always ask me why. How could somebody like you have depression? That's said to me all the time, right? Because I'm happy or whatever. But depression doesn't discriminate, and I believe that you can be born with it. And mine just started to take over, and I was kind of having a hard time seeing the point of life anymore.
Wow. Well, we should mention too that this story is about mental health. The book talks about that and how you overcame best you could to strengthen yourself and become a strong, courageous businesswoman in the city of Dickinson and things. But backing up, back to the story. Your mother passed away, I believe it was October 2021, 2 years ago. And on the anniversary of her passing, you, as you described it to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, you said you wanted to shock your grief. You wanted to shock that date, and you booked a trip. Talk about that.
Yep, and it wasn't quite at the anniversary. It was a couple months prior.
Okay.
But it was like around July, August.
Okay.
And then, but yes, I was so sad. I was spiraling. I was struggling, and I'm a mother, and so that on top of it was hard, because you don't want to be feeling like that, you know. And so I was just struggling so hard, and I knew that I was trying to find something to shock my system to get out of that sadness. So I had this most fabulous idea that I was going to go swimming with sharks in Mexico. And then that fell through, and because they canceled it there for some reason. We weren't allowed to, like, Americans weren't allowed to go there for some governmental thing. And then I had a dream. And
talk about that dream, that beautiful, fabulous dream.
This is the part I always warn people that we're entering crazy town, but just bear with me. My mom came to me in a dream, and she told me that I needed to go to New York, which I love New York. As he mentioned, I sang at Carnegie Hall there. I've been there many times. I love New York. But my mom came to me in a dream because I was devastated that this Mexico trip fell through. Like, I felt like my mom was dying all over again because I was holding on to it to shock that grief. And when that was canceled, I fell hard. And then my mom came to me in a dream and said, "You need to go to New York. I have something waiting for you there."
And that's all that the dream said. And so you followed up on that. You booked your trip the next day, right?
5:30 a.m. and I am not a morning person.
Okay.
I booked the trip I had no idea where I was staying, no idea where I was going. But I don't know if you've ever experienced something where you are well aware that you're kind of losing your mind, but I was just leaning in. I was just fully leaning in. Here we go. And I went to New York.
You went to New York. Back up a moment. 9/11, how did that tie in with your trip? You became friends with one of the victims of 9/11's wife, and you know, his name is
Brian Sweeney.
And we've heard stories of Brian Sweeney. He's the one that left his wife a voicemail and very calmly said, "I'll see you when you get here," meaning that he knew he wasn't going to make it. But you befriended
Julie. Julie is her name, yes. Julie Sweeney. I messaged her on Facebook after I'd already booked my ticket because I heard that voicemail. Because after when I knew I was going to New York, then it registered that I was going to be there during the 9/11 memorial. So I started watching every documentary, every single thing you could see on it, because I needed to then experience something that was sadder than what I was feeling. And I've learned that that doesn't make sense to a lot of people, but something that's been really cool since I started sharing my story is a lot of people who have lost someone in their life. They know exactly what I mean when I say that. I needed to be around people who were just as sad, if not sadder than me, so I could see that they survived. And so I became obsessed. And I have ADHD, so we have a thing that's called hyperfixation, where when we become obsessed with something, I'm not saying that lightly. Like, I watched every documentary, everything, every podcast, you name it. And when I heard that voicemail from Brian Sweeney, I still remember it. It was like a lightning bolt where I felt like I knew him. And I didn't know him, but I felt like I knew him. And I just had this feeling that was like, you need to contact his widow. You know, and so I found her on Facebook, sent her a message. The first thing I said was, I'm not crazy. I didn't hear from her for 4 days. Like I said, I still had my ticket booked. I packed my bags, and the night before I flew out, she contacted me and agreed to meet with me.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Now, your description of the 9/11 museum in this book is very clear, very precise. I've never read a description of a museum any better than what you depicted here in your book. And you know, you would think that that was the reason why you went to New York, but it wasn't. There was another sign that your mother wanted you to see. Talk about that.
And the majority of the time when I talk about my book, I do focus on the mental health side of it because that's such a huge component. I want to be an advocate for that. But at the time, this was when my lupus was at its all-time high. It was, my flare-ups were constant every day. It hurt to walk. It was just in pain constantly. And ironically, I was in a cab and the cab got cut off, you know, and all of a sudden we came up over this hill, and excuse me, I'm going to cry. The sun was setting right behind this big, fabulous sign, and it said Lupus Center. Wow.
Wow. And that was why you believe your mother told you to go to New York. Visiting the Lupus Center, did that change your life, Emily?
Yep. I went there. I saw so many other people who were just like me. They had all the same symptoms that I did. They had all the same problems, and they were living full, happy lives. They were getting treated. They were getting help. And the doctors there just believed them. They just believed them, you know? And so I went and spoke to the people there, got the information I needed to be treated as a patient there. And yeah, it was incredible, actually.
Wow. Do you still stay in touch with Julie Sweeney and the folks at the Lupus Center and all? Do you?
Yes.
Oh.
Yep. Julie and I are very good friends, and she's a hero. She's a hero for what she survived. And I still feel so incredibly humbled that she even took the time out to respond to me.
Yeah,
you know, she didn't have to do that, and she did.
Oh, the book is Finding Perspective Through 9/11, a single mom's journey through depression, death, lupus, and finding the will to survive. You are a survivor, and I do think that's how you're going to be remembered. Now, another goal that you have, Emily, you want to share this story. If somebody's watching and they want to have you come in and speak to a group, no matter what that group is, everybody can use a story about encouragement and things. That's something that you're really wanting to do, isn't it?
Yes, yes. And I know now, because I go over this in my book too, but like when I went to New York, I had a really cool moment of being saved by Jesus Christ, and now I'm living my life for him. And it's just been laid on my heart in the coolest way. And you hear these stories from other people who've been saved, right?
Right.
But it never happened to me before. And now when I say I know this, like, it's just been laid on my heart that I need to share this. This is now making sense why I've gone through some of these struggles, because now I need to share it.
Is there any questions that I haven't asked that you would like to share with our viewer today?
I do just always want to give a shout out to the 9/11 community. When I went there during that memorial, they welcomed me with open arms. And all of those people there are heroes for what they survived, how they picked their lives up and carried on. And I went there, you know, with kind of woe is me, look at all my problems, right? When you're stuck in that mindset. And you go there and see what they survived, and here they were hugging me. You know, they were hugging me while I was crying about my mom. And it made me view humanity in such a better, wonderful light. And I will always, always, always give a shout out to that community and how wonderful you all are, and you are all heroes.
A lot of the pages of the book describe the 9/11 Museum in vivid detail. Please purchase the book, and gosh, thanks so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Your heart is amazing. What you've done is amazing. You continue to fight the good fight, and we're very, very proud of you, and I'm proud to call you my friend.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. This is Dakota Cowboy on Beck TV. We're presented by Dakota Community Bank and Trust, and we are back in just a moment.